stuff.
I like it. And welcome to Friends with Privileges with the incomparable, the amazing, the brilliant, incredible Monique Marvez, comedian, philosopher, intellectual, and friend.
Mirror. Except comedian, not professional. You are very funny. You actually are very funny, but not for a living. So yes, this is Dr. Greg Cason, my dear friend and PhD. So he's got the info, he's got the goods. And this topic this week, we collectively, between the two of us, have probably a century of living like this.
We have an issue that we need to talk about.
Okay, so I'll tell the story and you break it down.
Okay.
All right. So everybody who's seen my stand-up knows that my first husband ran off with a woman named Melissa Ives, Melissa 2 S's, Ives. And this is the first time I've said it on camera, that it could make it through, because I said it in my Showtime special and they edited it out. They said, you can't do that, liability. For the record, it's a positive. Nothing could have gone any other way. Thank you, Melissa Ives. If people find you and say, are you the Melissa Ives? Say yes, because I wouldn't be a comedian and it couldn't have gone any other way. That being said, it wasn't so fun at the time. We went to a marriage counselor, much to my chagrin, because I don't really believe in marriage counselors. But my mom is Hispanic and Catholic and begged me to go talk to someone who would know what to do. And so we found a woman through friends. She was very old then, and it's been almost 40 years. But the long and I was very young. We were only married a year and a half. We were children. We got married so young. And when she asked him his primary reason for the infidelity, he said, Melissa needs me. Monique doesn't need anyone. And that was shocking and disheartening. I rose to my own defense and I said, isn't it better to be with somebody who just wants you, that can pick you, that prefers you, that doesn't need anything or anything? Like, I chose you because I had a good job. I was a makeup artist. I had a good job that paid well. I was with Lancome, and we were doing great as a young couple. And my self-sufficiency, I thought, I'm almost wrapping it up, then I want to hear everything you have to say. My self-sufficiency was what I thought was my selling point. Imagine somebody saying, no can do, don't want that product for the very thing you think is amazing. And it set me on a journey, which is going on almost to this very day, of believing that it is okay to ask for help, allow others to support you, step in emotionally. This isn't about money. This is about emotionally and energetically allowing to be cared for, supported. I mean, it's like that song, Lean on Me, when you're not strong. But in my mind, it's like, oh, but then I have to admit I'm not strong. And that's, it's been a problem. It's been a challenge. It's something I've been called on the carpet for more than once, that I think I'm a lone ranger, I'm an island, I'm a blah, 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 blah. And, but here's the truth. It was my own insecurities as a woman of feeling like I'm not one of those super pretty hot chicks that gets to be high maintenance or needy. I'm the handsome one that can help you milk the cows. You know what I mean? Like, that was my selling point, was that I was sturdy and dependable and didn't need anything. I'm going to turn to you.
What part would you like to know?
All of it. This is your job.
No, but let's just say, first of all, one, it's really okay to be who you are and who you were. I don't mean to be so cliche to say that, but just to say that is the case. It wasn't a match between you and this guy. That being said,
yes,
I do believe that most people, not just men, but specifically men, want to be needed, want to feel needed. It's not they want to be needed, they want to feel needed. They want to feel like that they are so important to you that you cannot live without them. And even though that's not real, that's what they want to feel. It doesn't mean that it has to actually be. You could earn more money, although then we could actually have a lot of problems in the relationship. But
Men don't like it when you make more money
men
than them.
don't like it when you earn more money than they do.
Really
They
don't
really
like
don't.
it. No,
That
I
is
know.
actually the case.
Okay.
But
That might be a whole nother show.
that is a whole other show.
It's a different world now.
But yes, you could earn more money. You could do so many things. You could have more friends, etc. But the man does want to feel needed. And you can do that through some very small things. I always say that in many ways I like to do, marriage counseling can be done with one person as much as it can be done with two. Although a lot of people...
Can you counsel me up so if I meet somebody, I'll be good?
In advance, that's tough. Because,
I haven't wrecked it
because
yet.
what we would want to know is who are you dealing with and what are the dynamics within the relationship.
Okay.
And then how do we tweak things to
Okay.
make them better? Because
All
there
right.
usually are ways to do it.
I have a theory, and then I'm going to turn it right back to you.
Yeah.
I always say in every relationship, there's the good one and the other. Now it's your
And the other one, I wonder who I am in the relationship. I wonder who I am in our relationship. I have to say.
Oh,
the
you're the
other
good
one.
one. No doubt. Oh my, that was a question.
But yes, in general, it is good to know that men want to feel needed, but women want to feel needed as well. Men are better at sort of giving the veneer of self-sufficiency, but they ultimately always need the
I
woman.
think men are bigger babies than women.
They're way bigger babies. No, it's serious.
I'm
That is
saying it in my head.
That's absolutely the truth. They're way bigger babies. Women are much tougher in general. And that's what always cracks me up, is that men will often put on the facade and women won't, but yet women can handle so many more things that you see, especially emotionally. They can really power through and do a lot more and juggle a lot more balls. But the bottom line is, and I know that sounded like a double entendre. I didn't mean it to.
No, it didn't.
But if a man is saying that, that is a huge red flag and something to really pay attention to. That being said, what you called out, though, the difference between want and need is something that's very good to lean into. Needing always puts you in a place of black and white thinking.
And don't you feel it might burden the other person?
Oh, that's a good
I always worry about
question.
burdening people.
Oh my God, we are the same person. If that is your issue,
I do.
that is exactly my issue. Is I
always feel
we
like
both
I'm
have
heavy.
this issue. Just to say, this is very strange. I don't like to burden people, but you know what? People don't mind being burdened a little bit. They don't want to be absolutely demolished or slapped down. They don't want to be only depended on, so you're just a dependent person.
Can I ask you a personal
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Between us. I mean,
Yeah.
it's about, it wouldn't be like a weird thing. I wouldn't do that to you on camera.
I don't care.
You and I have become pretty good friends.
Yeah.
Does it burden you that like I call you, that you're like my back at the ranch? Like when I had my car wreck, I called you. Is that a burden?
No.
Are you sure?
Did I feel burdened? No.
Yeah, because I mean, I have like two close men in Los Angeles, you and my brother. Like I always feel like there's times when you need, does that make me like a girly girl that I feel there's times you need to talk to a man?
No, it's fine. I mean, there are times I feel like I need to talk to a woman, and that's not even how I'm, going. It's oriented. But
Okay.
No, I don't think that's weird at all. I will say the burden thing, I did not feel it. And I'm trying to look into that moment. I remember that moment. I think I was tired, but I didn't feel burdened.
No, and you texted me right back. Do you need me to come get you? Which
Oh,
I
yeah.
was so amazed. I just wanted to tell somebody something had happened. My mom always says, because I live alone, I'm not married, I don't have children. My mom always says, you should give somebody your itinerary, because if you disappeared, nobody would know for days that you were gone. But now I go live every day since COVID, so the 3:30 gang would find me.
Oh, hi, 3:30 gang.
Yeah, whoever's on here, they would find me. Like if I go late, they immediately start in the chatter. Did she say she was going to be on a plane? Do we know where she, like, I know it'd be like, don't F with cats. They would find me. They would find me. Even if I was hacked to bits, they'd find my ear.
That I believe.
Yeah.
But no, I don't feel burdened. I don't feel burdened by you. And I don't feel burdened by most people. But there are times when I do, and it really hits hard. And I'm sure this is the same for you. It's sometimes I get too weighed down by things. And I think I give my all with my clients, probably as you do on stage in the same way. You give your all. And then so sometimes you just need nothing. You don't need to come home and have more tasks on the table. And I think this is whoever's working is going to come home from work and they want to feel, I always say, give them half an hour. Don't
do it in my
complain.
act. I said,
Do
when
you
a,
really?
I do. I have a bit where I say, when a man comes through the door, let him come through the door. Shh. I always say, don't spring on him with what the kids did or what broke or who called. I said, don't give him the news report. Let him go in the den, grab a beer. I grab a pitcher of iced tea if he needs an AA. And then I always say, if he's in AA, he really needs a break. Because I would say men go into recovery 90% of the time for their families, their wife. If you left men alone, they would just drink and play bongos in their underpants. That's
Probably.
I mean, Matthew McConaughey. But you know, I say, let him come through the door. Let him go in the den. He's got to rebuild his dopamine.
That's exactly right. And I think coming through the door, I think, just give it half an hour. Yeah, have the beer. I do think that little time to decompress. And then you can say, hey, the washing machine broke. But don't say it the minute they walk in.
Let me ask you something. Because, see, this is why I'm different than other people. I would have already made 3 calls to figure out what to do with the washing machine before he even got home. Like, he would probably want to go down and wash his gym shorts and go, the washing machine's broken? And I'd be like, yeah, but it's going to get fixed tomorrow. Like, that's how I roll.
That is how I roll too. So, I mean, this is bad because preaching to the choir a bit, but yes, some people, that is maybe a little bit of being needed, is to say, hey, I want to do this. Do you mind if I call the plumber? Even though you don't need his permission and you don't need his anything. And then it'd be like, oh yeah. And then he made this, kingly decision and could feel a little bit more a part of the issue. I think these are some people will probably peg me a little bit sexist here, but I think there are dynamics within relationships that we can actually benefit from if we lean into them and just say, hey, this is just real life.
Name one, because I think we're preaching to the converted. Name one, and then I'll tell you 2 or 3 that I think.
Wait, name one what?
That you think is a dynamic that is real and, it is what it is.
Oh, I think it's real that there are roles taken within relationships.
Like, I think men should kill bugs. End of story. I should never have to face down a roach or anything.
Then we are going to be good friends because I cannot let a bug go by without attempting. And I know I get all kinds of grief from my friends. I had one person who said that's why there are wars.
Are they like a Buddhist because they can't? They were invested like that.
Because I killed a spider, and I have to say I killed a spider. He said that's why there are wars. And I'm like,
men feel the spider.
Okay, I understand, but
I don't agree with that. Like, look, I don't know what that spider's about. You know what I mean? It could be poisonous, not poisonous. I mean, Personally, I watched Charlotte's Web when I was a little girl and it affected me, so I don't always go right for the spider. But if it's
spiders are good. And
we can see if it's a nice spider.
This was in the context of that issue.
But it's not the sidebar. The point I'm making is there's things that as a woman, I completely become a girly girl. Like bugs, lizards, I heard a noise downstairs. Like if we're touring the world doing this as a live event, or sharing a suite and somebody comes through the adjoining door, I'm pulling the covers over my head. Like I will yell, kill him!
Yeah, and I'm going after them. I mean, I have to, I confront the situation.
Yeah, no, not me.
So I suppose that's the difference. I can't hide. I feel more vulnerable if I hide.
Really?
Yeah, which is interesting.
It's a dude thing, but not me. Like that there are times I turn into like a girly girl, because even when I used to travel alone if I just didn't like the look of the front desk guy, I would push 3 pieces of furniture in front of the door. I kid you not. And nothing, in all my years of being a road comic, nothing ever happened to me any way, shape, or form. But I think part of it is I always followed that women's intuition that There were times that I felt that I don't really like this place or I'm not comfortable. And I did everything in my power to feel safer and more comfortable, even if it sounded or seemed bizarro, whether it was move furniture, take out my cuticle nippers. Somebody's losing an eye.
But see, this is it. When we've talked about this before, I think in our first show, about the effect of gender dynamics. And it's just really interesting because this is a very real world. And we've talked about it before.
You're bigger than me. Like in a fair fight, you would win. In an unfair fight, I might be able to hold you for a second, like bend your thumb.
I think.
But in a fair fight, I'm toast. Look at the size of him.
Well, I wouldn't fight you.
But I'm just saying. But men are traditionally bigger than women.
But it makes you feel less vulnerable. And I think, in many ways, men are blind to how vulnerable women can feel.
I'm a big, strong girl.
No, you're strong.
I wore sleeveless so you could see these. I'm very proud of the guns.
You're strong and you're tough and you can take on anyone. I'm not doubting that. But I think a lot of people, men, don't understand that women do feel vulnerable at times. And because of them, like when they come on too strong or catcall them or come after them in certain ways.
I just had this conversation today. I was with my girlfriend, Cecily, she was here, and we went in the elevator and there's some award show and there were two very attractive men in tuxes, young brothers done up. Mm-hmm. And we were harassing them. We were like, where are you going? Like we were bad. They loved it.
Yeah, men would love that.
That's what she said. She goes, that's the difference between men and women. If you and I were in evening gowns and they treated us exactly the same, we would not like it, but they loved it. Because afterwards, when we got in the car, I go, I think we were a little rude to those guys, but they were grinning and waving and telling us to have a good night.
Yeah.
Okay. Gender dynamics.
But I think that's because they don't feel vulnerable. So they probably don't get hit on or have a little flirtation like that because it's also not really allowed to do with.
Yeah, that's true. But here's going back to, because I don't want to get away from the central topic.
I don't either.
Because it's important and you have a lot to say as a marriage counselor. How often do you get couples that somebody feels useless, whether it's the man or the woman, or feels you're not giving me the opportunity to do for you?
I've never heard a woman say it. I've only heard men say it.
Never?
I've never heard it. If it did come out, it was
obscure. It wasn't an obvious thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what did the men say?
That they sometimes don't feel needed, just like your boyfriend felt, or the husband. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, I've heard it from boyfriends too. I've heard it from everyone.
It's not a fault of yours. And again, there is a thing about match that sometimes.
But it's a trust thing. It's a trust thing. I always feel
you have to trust to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel if I let them drive the car, we're going straight into the wall.
Well, that's a problem, and I think this is the problem of. I think there's a flip side. We don't want to need, because we see that as somehow less than. We see it as a weakness. I don't see it as weakness. What am I saying? Oh, that I think people can. But to need someone, it feels like there's something wrong with it, because I don't want to be a burden. It comes back to that issue for me. Like, I don't want to be a burden on somebody else. I know exactly where that comes from in my life. Because as we've talked about, I have a brother who's disabled. He's a year older. It's very common for people in that dynamic of a family that when the younger child is raised with the older child, that he or she learns to give up their own
And I think
needs.
Chronic illness too. I have friends that have siblings that were just chronically ill. Either they had on and off leukemia or type 2 diabetes when diabetes was bad. Like when I was a little girl, I remember having my first friend with a chronic illness. I'll never forget it because I always carried orange juice. She had the serious diabetes. And when she was discovered to have had it, she missed 2 or 3 weeks of school. And it was a very big deal. And she was very ill because it's the 70s. Now it's nothing. Well, but it used to be bad, you know? Yeah. And I know that when there's chronic illness of any type in the family, that the whole family seems to kind of bend around that.
Yes.
You know, whether it's, I've had people in my life that had a cystic fibrosis child. Yeah. The whole family bends like a bow around that situation.
It's a good way to put it. But what we see is like when the kid ages, generally the younger kids are going to bend more because they grow up with a different reality than the older kids do. And then the parents will often focus in on the kid with the special needs,
Yeah,
whatever
course,
that thing
of
is.
course.
And that particular thing, the kids could either be resentful, maybe the older kids, or the younger kids just don't want to be a burden. They don't want to say or do anything that could be a problem. So they kind of just bury themselves in other ways. So I mean, I know that's where it comes from for me.
That's not where mine comes from.
Where does yours?
I'm going to tell you,
Okay.
and I don't know that I thought about it till just now. My father was he suffered from depression, from very dark moods, so to speak. They didn't call, back in the day they called it manic depressive. Now they call it bipolar. Call it whatever you want. But I always felt that both of my parents were fragile. I've always believed that both. This is just coming up as we're talking. My father was incredibly sensitive and fragile.
Yeah.
And he was a wonderful dad in many ways. Some not so much. But he was very emotional. He cried very easily. He could sink into a depression. And I always felt that I didn't want to put that one penny weight, and I did once, and I saw what happened, and I never did it again, because when the brackets would break, I would always say that it was like a bracket broke and the shelf fell and everything slid off. And I'll tell you, I know where mine comes from. I just got it as we were talking, because it was throughout my childhood, but when I was 9 years old, we went to London, and my dad had only been out of the hospital like 7 months. He had shock treatment. And I think back and I want to ask my mom, like, who lets a little girl go to Europe with a guy that's fresh out of the funny farm? But okay. So my dad and I went to London in August of 1972. I was just shy of my 10th birthday. And he was having an episode. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but he was manic. It was not getting good. He wasn't changing his clothes. And I remember being embarrassed because the women in the lobby of the hotel in London commented that he was peculiar. I overheard them saying, "That's a peculiar man. He's been wearing the same clothes for 4 days or something off." I mean, I heard them, and it really hurt me for him.
Yeah.
And then he started. He would get into these episodes where he would become, nervous or paranoid, whatever word you want to use. So when we went, I'll never forget it. We went to the changing of the guards.
Yeah, yeah.
And the crowds were massive. And we were on a tour bus, and my dad just looked out the window and saw all the people, and he said, "I don't want to lose you in the crowd. I'm afraid I'm going to lose you."
Oh.
So we didn't get off the bus. It was just me, my dad, and the bus driver sitting in London in the summer, because he went into that mode. So that night, I'll never forget it as long as I live. We went to Madame Dragon's Chinese restaurant in London, and I ordered mushroom soup because I'm a little girl. I think it's going to be Campbell's. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to be comforting, and they bring me clear soup with a black sliver of mushroom floating, and I just started to cry like I'd had enough.
Oh.
And I just started to cry. And then I kind of looked across the table, and he was losing it. And everybody in the restaurant was like staring. My dad's a big man. He was like, like it was bad.
Oh.
And I just said, "I want to go home." And my dad like really lost it. I remember literally, Greg, having to push him forward and roll him to get his wallet out to pay. And then walking him home like this he's a big man. And holding his hand and walking back to the hotel, because we ate there because it was close to the hotel. And then I remember him just calling BOAC and saying, "My daughter's very homesick. I need to take her home." And it was bad. And he had shock treatment again after that. And then many years later, 30 years later or something like that, he said, "We went to London once, didn't we?"
Oh.
And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I can't remember it very well. It didn't go well, did it?"
Oh.
And I remember thinking, oh, talk about a masterpiece and understatement. But I think I always felt like I needed to tippy-toe around him because he could barely handle himself. I think that's where I get it from.
Of course. You had to learn, look at that. You had to learn to care for yourself. You learned that I couldn't lean on this person.
No.
Even though you very much, and I know you very much admired him.
Absolutely.
And cared for him. but you couldn't depend on him.
No.
And you, as a 9-year-old there,
And it started before that. That was just the worst episode.
had to take out the wallet and pay. You had to guide him home. You had to be the adult.
I remember how I felt
situation.
when we landed at Miami International Airport.
Yeah.
I was like Desmond Tutu. I wanted to kiss the ground. I was so happy, like I'm home, I'm safe, it's gonna be okay. It was crazy. I remember getting in the cab, how I felt. But yeah, I mean there were things before that, but that's the episode that told me, like, don't weigh anybody down, don't burden them, don't, like, that was just the machine got reprogrammed to not burden anybody.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to ask a favor. It's very hard, even to ask somebody to forget LAX, ever, never, ever. But even just to ask somebody like, hey, I don't have a car right now. Would you mind if you're swinging by? Like, I remember I asked you one time to pick me up on our way to Larchmont.
Yeah.
It's like on the way.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, and this is how I start when I'm going to ask a favor. You ready?
Yeah.
There's no wrong answer. That's what I always
you
tell
did
people.
say that.
I always say no is perfectly fine. It's okay. However, would you, could you, if it's not a problem, and then the person 99% of the time goes, yeah, that's not a problem at all. But I'm very careful with what I ask. I don't ever ask anything major. Like, I'm always surprised and to some degree delighted that there's people like that. I have a friend, Michelle, and the only word I can use is entitled. But I don't say that with a negative. Like, I'm envious of her. Like, the kind of people that will go to a restaurant and go like, well, what's the bun made of? Like, is it whole grain? Like, those people.
Yes.
And then they're going, no, I don't want. And they take a long time to order.
They try every ice cream in the
And
place.
then they even go like, well, that's. And then when you go like, Michelle, she goes like, that's his job. That's why he's here. Like, if I didn't order buns, like, he wouldn't have a job. Like, they justify it all. But and by the way, I admire it. I'm not making fun of it. I admire being that certain that, that everything is there for your benefit and for your delight and to help you, like, she moves through the world. When I travel with her, she always tells me, because she's taking a couple trips, she goes, go stand over there. You're not going to like what I'm going to do. And then I will. And then I'll come back. She goes, I got us a room upgrade, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wow.
I'm not even kidding. I don't know how she does it.
Well, I should admire it. Sometimes I find that annoying, just my own personal self.
Me too, but I always benefit from it. So I can't complain about what serves me, because she always says, Monique, ask. What are they? They're going to say no. What's the problem?
She's absolutely correct.
I know she is.
And it's good to be assertive, and it's good to look after your own needs. And I will tell you, the calculation, this is interesting to me. I don't know about anybody else. It's interesting to me. That you do this calculation in your head, you do, well, I mean, okay, I could ask for this thing go have a restaurant meal. I could ask for this, like a substitute for the green beans, but, I can eat what they're giving me.
I do that. The only thing that's made me speak up for health reasons, because, hello, grandma, dad, and brother, congestive heart failure, I'm a pescatarian. So anytime there's any meat involved, like if it's a chopped salad, I'll say, just give me extra avocado or whatever. I do substitutions on things that have meat.
Okay.
And I feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, but that's a big reason. That's a big
And
marquee
I'm always willing.
reason.
I'm always willing. I would say, I understand if there's an upcharge for avocado. Like, there's no wrong answer. When I tell the waitress.
Okay, yeah, but it's so I think this is kind of an issue that a lot of people have that people don't talk about. And then the flip side is, of course, that's appearing needy or appearing to in your own head being a burden to the other person. But the other is being knee dead, and people who are knee dead can then feel like they're important. Do you feel needed?
Do I feel needed?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes.
See, we're rich with feeling needed. It's uneven, and I think that's part of the problem. The universe does
seek balance, and I do believe that. I think we have to allow people. Me personally, I want to get better at that.
Get better at what? Being
at
needed?
Allowing people to step in and do when they offer. To not say, oh, it's
To allow
okay.
you to need.
Yes.
Yes.
I need to, people offer to help me or do nice things for me all the time. And I always feel like, oh, it's okay.
But I do believe there's the dark side, and I'm talking about the dark side now,
I
which is,
I think it's a little bit of ego.
which is, well, you could call it ego, but in a way,
what's the dark side?
in a way that we feel a satisfaction in being needed.
But,
I feel like,
what part of this is being satisfied?
well, I suppose the ego. You want to get down to that. Yes, I get what you mean. But I was really just kind of saying that I think it's good to have balance in all things.
I agree.
And I do believe sometimes things go out of balance. I do believe that the type of person, which I don't think we're alone, I think a lot of people have this.
I think a lot of people have this.
Have it, and you don't talk about it because, again, you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to put your issues out there. You don't want to appear like there's a problem. And it's not appear weak, because that's not it. I don't mind appearing weak. You do? You don't want to appear weak?
No, I don't. It's not about weak.
Because I never feel it. But,
I'm going to ask you a question as a counselor.
Yeah.
Do you think that social media is creating a more black and white way of looking at these things? Because have you noticed those people that are always posting, hey, I don't want it to be about me, but I'm feeling low today. Like, well, and then people be like, you're the best. I love you. You're the great. Like, I know that's horrible for me to malign that. I'm apologizing in advance for being a butt. But there are people that I notice in my feed because they're my friends, and a lot of comedians are not happy people off stage. Like, my circle of friends, there are a handful of people that regularly post about, I'm struggling today, I'm feeling puny. If we ever cross paths and you have something nice to say about me, now would be the time. I'm being horrible. I need to stop now.
I'm just surprised someone would write that. But I'm not surprised.
But people do.
Yeah, no, I know. I am, but I'm not.
And I think that it's one way or the other. People only post, everything's amazing. It's like, the Lego movie, everything is awesome. That can't be like that all the time. But on the other hand, I
do love that movie, by the way.
I know, and I love the song.
Oh.
Everything. Yeah, but
the opening song.
But there are people that do post a lot of their really personal needs and pain in a very public place.
That's true. And and
we're normalizing it completely.
As
a society, it's become completely normal.
Well, here we are talking about extremely personal things. I think it's also.
But it happened like so long ago. I'm not in the hospital talking about my miscarriage day one. Right. Like, that happens all the time now. I'm talking about something that not only no longer hurts or bothers me, but I believe fully it couldn't have gone any other way. So, like, I wouldn't talk about it if it was something that had charge on it.
So, gosh, I don't want to get away from the want and need thing. We'll come back.
But it's very important.
But I do think, there are people who are desperate for attention, and social media really has laid the groundwork to get attention, sometimes in some very unhappy ways.
And here's the weird thing, if I may.
Yeah.
Am I interrupting you? Was there more to that? Keep going.
Well, I mean, it's just that I was talking to some clients today just about factitious disorder by proxy and factious disorder, which
I don't even know what that is.
It's Munchausen's disorder.
I know what Munchausen is.
It's like faking an illness or faking an illness in your child in order to get attention. And we were talking about how that type of person is actually pretty naive, and it's very hard to penetrate their psyche to be able to help them understand that what they're doing is very problematic. They both know what they're doing because they're doing it, and they try to pretend to the end of their days that it's not happening, that they really do have that illness, or that their child really does have that illness.
Now, do you think when you say, would that fall under the of delusion?
It is a type of delusional disorder, but it's sort of its own thing because they're actually creating the problem.
Let me ask you.
So it's really, we look at the very naive person who falls into this. They're very striking when you meet them. They're almost childlike.
That's so funny you should say that.
Why?
Just because, here's my question, and it's a chicken egg, okay?
Yeah.
if the person is naive, is childlike, and is indulging in this behavior, is the behavior bad, or is the fact that they are emotionally in that position that they need so much bad?
Well, I mean, you got to judge the behavior first.
Okay, because I don't think people are born that way. I don't think people are born jacked up and
no,
needy.
but I was kind of drawing a little bit back to social media that there's a weird version of that going on. The people want the attention, so they're calling out their issue, and they're saying, "Please pay attention to me. Please say good things about me. Please make me feel better."
Well, even a humble brag, like when people, and again, their journey's the journey. I feel uncomfortable sometimes when people will say, like, it's day 2 of sobriety recovery, and I'm thinking, you're in a very tenuous, precarious, fragile. Like, what happens? And the rate of recidivism is 98%. Like, are you going to be this open about your relapse? Because I'm not saying it's coming, but it could be coming. Or is that a way to be held accountable?
It is a way to be held accountable, but I wouldn't do it in a public forum. I would do it only with other people who are recovering from addiction, because that group of people can really assist you. They can really say, hey, this is the problem, or this is what's going on, or we're here for you, good for you, or maybe they're close friends and family. But when you put it out in the public sphere, we can see some real problems happen.
Well, it's funny, now we've hit on exactly the framework. As you know, I'm not a big drinker, like maybe 8 drinks a year, whatever. But I do perform a lot for the sober community. I let them know, hey, I'm not a friend of Bill, but I'm like adjacent. I'm Bill, I'm Bill.
But Bill's a good friend.
I'm a friend, yeah. I'm not a friend in that way, but kind of in another way. But the reason I'm saying that is because I think one of the things that works within that structure, and it's old school. I mean, obviously recidivism is still high, but hey, 2% is better than 0%,
Yeah.
And it might even be higher, but the fact that there is a framework within the system, within the steps of support and need being very equal. Like, you have a sponsor, you speak to the group, if you need a job or a place to live. Like, I've been in the rooms, as they say, with many friends, supporting many friends, and there's a equanimity, there's an egalitarian way that they use their resources and time and effort to uplift and support the goal of recovery, that I think that should be, maybe potentially could be applied to society.
Oh, in many ways. I actually think the 12-step approach, and that the community that has embraced it, is really one of the great strengths. And I will encourage anyone to look into that who's struggling with addiction. I think, sometimes people get hung up by individual things about that approach, especially like spirituality is a big complaint of it, or they have...
What's a big complaint? They don't like the spiritual component?
They don't like the spiritual component.
It's a completely Judeo-Christian system. Get over yourself.
But that's a common complaint that they're saying keeps them out. But when you really break it down, it's one of the most brilliant approaches. But one thing is, I was part of a huge study.
Were you?
That was here at UCLA, and I actually got to present it at this National Institutes of Alcohol in Washington, D.C.
When was that?
Oh,
I like how you gloss over how you've done these big, important things.
That was years ago.
Doesn't mean it wasn't big and important.
I think it was before I even got my PhD. I was in a master's program at that point.
All right, fair enough.
So I was working at the VA, and the VA was one of the sites, and we had all these other sites, and we were trying to assess what is the superior substance abuse treatment. So we were trying to look at, inpatient, outpatient. We looked at 12-step. We looked at sober living. We looked at all these different types of things.
And they're not exclusive. Like, you can do a few at the same time, can't you?
You absolutely can. But we were trying to say, is there a modality that is superior? What we found, to no one's surprise, and this has been duplicated, so to no one's surprise, is that nothing is superior. They all work about the same. So that's good news, because
Excellent.
Anyone that you feel attracted to is probably going to be the right one for you. So that's great. Number 2, we talked about the importance of AA, because it's the only one that's free and the only one that's everywhere. So even though some people can take issue with AA and that model, it's free and it's everywhere. So if you really can use that model,
If you want to get sober, you can.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about, again, I keep thinking since we started the show, literally for the last 45 minutes, all I hear is Barbra Streisand singing "People who need people are the luckiest people."
Yes.
I don't even know why, except the topic, of course. But here's what's interesting about the AA model. First of all, it is everywhere, because on cruise ships in tiny print on the daily runner, it always says "Friends of Bill." And I overheard these two old ladies going, "Bill must be the top of the captain's club because he's on every cruise. Like he must be." It was so funny. They're like, "He must have more points, you know." And I smiled inside because I was thinking, you know, no, that's not what you think it is. But even on every single cruise ship, they have a Friend of Bill meeting during the cruise.
Isn't that incredible?
I think it's fantastic. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, because one of the first steps, maybe the first step, is to admit that you're powerless in front of your addiction. And I think I'm going to hit on something really big right now. I think one of the challenges of needing help is vulnerability and humility. They say there's no recovery without humility.
I agree with that.
And I think that sometimes there is, I don't want to say shame, but there's a not wanting to be humbled or to appear vulnerable.
Or to be humiliated.
Yeah,
And
or
some people
the
might
ask.
see that, yeah.
I believe that for people, I'm going to just lump you in like us.
Do it.
I think that there's a vulnerability in the ask that we're not comfortable with.
I think that's true. Yeah, because
I love when he does that.
well, because when you because that maybe, at least for us, you and
For me, for sure.
both of us, that asking for help is, again, I see it as a burden, and I don't want the other person to feel the weight or burdened from my actions. That's interesting to me. And you know, sometimes it doesn't mean I don't ask for what I want or I don't go for what I want, but what I do is I think I'm a little less pushy and a little more plotting about how to do things.
Oh, I want to hear about plotting.
Well, I mean, that it's like, oh, if I want this, if I want a car of this type, this thing, I'll like do all the research. I'll figure out exactly what everything costs, I'm going to go in with. Like I'm completely armed when I go in. So I don't trust just the force of my personality. I'll be able to maneuver, because then I'll know that I'm not burdening the other person asking for anything unreasonable. I want to ask, let's say, for something that's reasonable. So that's what I mean. I'm a little more plotting in that way. You're smiling.
Because I have a similar, well, almost exactly.
Yeah.
But there's been times when let's say I've been doing a deal for radio or something, and the person negotiating the deal with me, who's on my side, my lawyer, will say, "You left money on the table. There was money on the table. If they said yes that fast, they really want you. You should have asked for more." And I always say, I want people, you know, in my professional life. Now, professional and personal are very different.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to admit that. But even in my professional life, I always feel like I want people that book me or pay me or hire me to, you know, be on the radio. I always used to tell my lawyer, I want them to go to bed at night and feel like they got a really good deal in me. That they're excited to have me. I don't like arm twisting. And there's so much of life is about, it's kind of a known thing. Like, yeah, it's a negotiation. And that, yeah, especially in my business, it gets stupid what people negotiate in television and film and high-level radio.
Yes, well, as you know, I mean, really quickly, I had a television contract, this is 10 years, 11 years ago, but one I held out and would not commit for, I think, 6 weeks with the contract on the table. And I held out because of one thing that I knew they could do, they just weren't doing. and that I knew it wasn't unreasonable.
You wanted a big trailer?
No, I wanted them to cover me insurance-wise malpractice. They were having me consult with people, and I'm like, if I don't have choice in the patients, like I can't pre-screen them.
No, that's very smart.
Then I'm like, then I can't have that be under me. It has to be under you. And basically that negotiating point held up the deal for weeks, to the point that they're like, do you even want to do this? And I'm like, very much so, but this is my one issue. And that's what I held out for. And that's what finally came through.
You know what my last job was before I became a comic?
What?
I sold medical malpractice insurance to doctors.
Did you?
Yeah. I can tell you that in 1991, a neurosurgeon in South Florida paid $127,000 a year for coverage.
Yeah.
Yep. I had one doctor named Gary Lusgarten, MD. God bless you, Gary Lusgarten. He was my best client, and every year I would sell him medical malpractice insurance, and I knew something amazing was going to happen. I actually got my first boob job with the commission from a Gary Lusgarten policy.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. And I was excited because, for the record, I didn't get them so they would be amazing, although they are. I got it because I was burned when I was younger. I was badly burned, and I wanted to go in and fix the scar. It was cooking. So I went in, and my plastic surgeon, the first consultation, I thought it was like, I'm so naive. I thought it was just like, all he could do was like fix the scar. So when I went in and he goes, well, as long as you're fixing the scar, is there anything else you want? I'm like, what do you mean? I felt like Ed McMahon had pulled up with the prize patrol. He's like, well, do you want them bigger? Do you want them higher? I'm like, what? But yeah, I initially went in because I was badly burned when I was younger. But the upshot is that medical malpractice insurance that was a good thing to hold out for.
Yeah, it's really important.
And it's expensive.
It could have destroyed my career.
Of course, if you gave somebody...
Nothing happened. It ended up being, for naught, because everything was fine. But nonetheless, I was concerned about it. But just to go back to want and need.
But let's be honest, on a television show like that, they don't want it to go normal. They want to churn people up and make it visible and make it good TV. It's not like your patients...
And they did.
It's not like your patients were like, oh, we're fine now, thank you.
And they did. But the patients were human beings. So they didn't hold it against me when they were getting churned up. Which was nice.
Enough.
They actually saw me as on their side,
good.
Which was nice. But I will say, like with want and need, those are very key things. And basically, you want to not have to need, because need is very black and white. It's very brittle. Yet we all do have needs. We have food, water, sleep, all the stuff. Yes. Monique, your hand is up.
Because here's what I was taught through a friend of mine who was like a Tony Robbins kind of master trainer kind of person. She said that want is desire and need is scarcity.
Well, that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way. We always have needs, but I would say that only...
But they're very basic.
It's clear about what your needs are, yes.
It's shelter, food.
Wants, you know what, okay, let's go through. A need maybe is, I need to go to the store to get food because otherwise I don't have food in my refrigerator. So you say, I'm going to get food as a need. So you could kind of rationally say, I need to go to the store.
Absolutely.
In that thing. Now, to get to the store, you could walk, but it might be quite far and you might have to bring many groceries. Maybe, do you say you need to drive? I would say no. You'd say, I want to drive because I want to bring more groceries, or it's a little easier. And so people will start to parse this. We overuse the word need because sometimes we don't really need something. So I do ask that people look at the difference between want and need. We could spend a whole show on that.
Well, that's kind of what we are talking about because I was thinking as you were speaking about the difference of like, I need groceries, but I don't need to drive. I want to drive because the groceries, and you're right with the parsing. But when I give advice to my girlfriends, which I do frequently, I'm proud to say I'm needed. I always tell them, do not have needs discussion with a guy, especially when you're first dating him. A need discussion comes from a place of fear. Like, the last guy didn't give me what I needed, so I'm going to tell you so you don't mess it up. I like, give somebody an opportunity to learn the care and feeding of you before, like, Because
I'm laughing because these are what I talk about in therapy. This is very right. This is exactly right. This is why I think I was initially attracted to you when I saw you, because I thought your philosophy was right on exactly. So what you're talking about with your girlfriends is correct. That to actually say, I want this, rather than I need this. It does appear weak when you say that. If you say,
and I think it comes
want
from
this,
fear. It comes from somebody else broke these dishes.
but it's also giving the sense that the other person's in deficit, that somehow
or incompetent.
they're not giving you what you need.
And you haven't even given them a chance, especially early on in the relationship.
Right.
Like young girls now, there's no such thing as TMI. They just launch into like, well, I need because I suffer anxiety. And I was like, let the horses run a little. Let's see what's going on before you start. You're smiling.
No,
but,
I agree with this.
Because here's the, when the time comes, and it's going to come more frequently, to say like, I would prefer, because I always say I would prefer. Like early on in a relationship.
I don't even know what to say, because that's exactly what I ask people to say. I would prefer.
Because this is what I say. I say, I'm going to tell you, like one of my best relationships I ever had, I told him on like the second date, because there was a lot of chemistry. It was for sure we were going to do it pretty quick. We weren't going to wait like, oh, let's wait for about 5 dates. We were struggling at minute 5. So I said, here's the thing about me. I said, I am a one-man woman. Like, I don't like mixing energies. I'm not a play the field. Like I said, if we have a physical relationship, not intimate, because you can be very intimate, not physical. It's not my preference, but it happens. I said, if we're going to be physical, it is my preference. I am a one-man woman. If we're together, you can put your head on a train track that's it, like done, until it doesn't work out, or, it worked out for a long time with this fella. I said, however, I don't impose myself on other people. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I looked him right in the eye. I said, if there's something in your life that you feel compelled to do, that you think would hurt my feelings, be a man and make sure I don't know about it. And he was like, you're the coolest chick on the planet. Because although I prefer exclusivity, that has to be a personal decision.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I always think women are setting everybody up for failure.
Any absolute sets somebody up for failure.
I think so.
Any absolute. Any kind of, I think we've said before, the expectations in a relationship, expectations are just future disappointments. That, in many ways, it is good for you to lay out what you prefer. And I always say that the key in relationships is not expectations, but agreements. This is what we agree to. Mm-hmm. And that becomes then the contract.
I think the hardest laugh I get every single night, and I have a video that has millions and millions of views, including one reaction video that has 3.5 million views. Reacting. I say women get upset with me because they say, Monique, you make it sound like we should lower our expectations when it comes to our men. And I say, no, don't lower them. Lose them altogether. If he comes home at night, he's yours. Feed him some noodles and touch his pee-pee. I cannot tell you how many men, how many thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe 1 million, have set in parentheses, I love noodles or something like that, because, I just feel like you're setting yourself up the minute you think that someone needs to act another way, because the subtext, which is powerful because everything happens on an unconscious level, is you're not good enough the way you are.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I always ask when I do bridal showers, I'm in Vegas and a bunch of little girls will show up with like penis hats or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And I'll look at the bride. I'll make her stand on a chair. And I will say, if he never changes a hair on his head, will you still be happy? Greg, the pauses I get, the reactions I get.
Yeah.
They're like, I go, because he's going to stay like that. Most likely.
The most powerful tonic of any relationship is accepting your partner as they are.
I would think that's the baseline.
Day one.
When you say the tonic, it's like, the baseline.
Well, it solves quite a bit.
How are we doing, Tony? It goes so fast. We got 3 minutes left. 4? Where does it go? Because here's the thing.
I promise to disagree with you sometime, but not on this discussion. I think we're on the same exact
And I think
page.
we both agree that we both need to be more vocal about our needs and wants.
Yeah, I think that, probably 10, 20 years ago, I probably couldn't even see it. It took me a lot of time, a lot of years, and even some therapy to see that I did have an issue with that.
You got into therapy?
Yeah, I've been to therapy.
You've got it.
I've been to years of therapy.
I remember watching The Sopranos when Tony found out that Dr. Melfi had a therapist.
Yes.
And yeah.
You got to keep the knife sharp.
Really?
Yeah. I can't just expect my Ginsu to always cut the same. I need to sharpen it now and then.
Well, I went to hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And I really loved it. It changed my life. And I find that I'm a comedian, like all of us go to, like, that's day one of being a comedian, is people know you're a little, the formula for comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yes.
Yeah. And the reality is I meet people that they could be comedians, like they have real tragedy.
Yeah.
Real tragedy. But my parents had a little hitch in their giddy ups, but they were good people and et cetera, et cetera. But I've managed to mine their hitches a lot.
Good.
And it's still going well. Well, I'm going to leave you with this because it's the same thing we talked about. And I think it's not quite our lockout, but it's getting close to that. I'm going to say it. I believe that the best relationships, whether it's business, personal, intimate, physical, because nowadays they're not all the same thing, just so you know. There's like all kinds of people, My mom got very upset with me once because she's like, when are you going to get a boyfriend? And I said, maybe I'm too much for one man. Maybe I need to have like a quilt, like I need to have like my movie guy and my hang cool, yoga friend, and like then the sex guy. She did not like that. That the sex guy wasn't the other two guys. She was like, no, very Catholic. But I think any relationship, when you feel like you're the lucky one.
Yeah.
You're punching above your weight class. So I say it all the time. That's how I feel about you.
And that is absolutely how I feel about you.
I feel like
I don't even know.
Yeah, it's the same.
Oh.
And see, but look how well it goes. Yeah. So there you have it. I think it's very important to feel that way. If you don't feel that way about the people around you, don't change them. Don't change them. Look inside and ask yourself, why? Why not? What happened? Did you ever feel that way? Was it convenience? Was it, you know what I mean? Like look inside and ask yourself, why don't I trust this person? Why don't I share with them? Why don't, like the old lean on me? Like why can't you let them help you?
Man in the mirror.
That's a good one.
If you want to make the world a better place, look at yourself and make a change.
All right. So I'm going to let him do the lockout because I did it last month.
What?
Yeah,
What's my lockout?
Well, we didn't have like an official one, but I was saying if Disneyland is the happiest place on earth, I want this podcast to be the happiest place not on earth.
This podcast is the happiest place not on earth.
Because look how happy we're very happy.
Yeah.
At least when we're hanging out with you.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for coming and yeah.
I think we should say the official stuff like subscribe, follow us, share us with your friends. If you like it, we'll do it more, and we're going to start chopping it into pieces and putting it on other platforms. Right now, this is the soft open of the store. We're getting used to you. You're getting used to us. So
we're getting our sea legs.
Yes.
But it would be really great because I love being with and working with Monique, and I love sharing wisdom with you, and I think she's probably...
You've made me a better person.
Well, you're very nice to say that. You're a brilliant vessel for brilliance.
I'm gonna... Done.
Thank you.